call this meeting to order. Melanie, would you please take the roll?
Chair Wonderman.
Here.
Vice Chair Moyer.
Here.
Director Dew.
Here.
And Director Henneberry.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. Would you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, welcome to SF Bay Ferry's first meeting in 2026. This Board of Directors meeting is being conducted in person and by video conference, and it is being recorded. To reduce background noise, all video conference participants will be joining the meeting in listen-only mode and muted during the discussion. We welcome comments from the public. A public comment period will be set aside after each discussion period and will be accepted in person and by video conference. Video conference participants wishing to speak are requested to please email your name and item number you'd like to comment on to boardofdirectors@sfbayferry.com. And if you're unable to send an email, you will be given an opportunity to speak on the item after those who have signed up. So welcome. It's great to have the board together. We've got, I think, a big year ahead of us in 2026. I'm excited about it. I think it's an opportunity for us as a new year comes in to think about what's ahead and what the opportunities are and what the challenges are in front of us and how to deal with that. I think the organization, as I think about how far we've come over the last few years toward creating this, really far-reaching, magnificent, zero-emission future system, and the work that's being done toward that. And as I look in the minutes of last month's meeting and the progress that we're making, and visiting Washington State to see lay the keel on our vessel and all of those things, we sort of take it for granted maybe that's what we're just doing, but we shouldn't take it for granted. It's big, it's different, and and we're providing a lot of leadership, and I'm really proud of it, and it's exciting. And I was thinking about it as I was reading the packet, and I was looking at the percentages, Gary, of how much percentage we've expended on these capital projects, which is in a lot of cases it's in single digit, but it's gonna go up, and at some point we're gonna be having quite a ceremony and riding it's gonna be quite a ride. I hope it works. Hanners, better work. We're counting on you. I started my new job at California Forever, so no longer with Bay Area Council, and it's really about building the future and building homes for people who can afford them, and having our kids have a place to live, and repopulating and growing and reindustrializing a region which has lost industrial capacity. And as we're doing that, and it's in Solano County just in the last few weeks, Pippin, right? We lost the announced closure of the Valero refinery, the Budweiser plant, which was really a signature of Solano County, and then during the holidays, the closure of the Mare Island Drydock. So we're not heading in the right direction here, and I'm glad to be involved with what I've been talking about here for a few years. And first while, I think I was the only one talking about bringing shipbuilding back to this region. But now that now that I'm part of this group, it seems to have infected a lot of other groups, and we saw the merger between Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and Cal Maritime. So we now have Cal Poly Solano in effect and Cal Poly Maritime, which is really exciting. I've met with the president of that institution and the person who's running it, and they are really excited about training the next generation of folks involved in this industry. And so there's a lot of there's tremendous interest that's happening, a lot of movement, and I think it makes sense for us as an organization to be involved in those things and be part of this movement that's taking place in a very forward way. So I'm excited about that. Um, I was thinking about one of my favorite movies is Jaws, and the best, the most famous line in Jaws is, of course, when Rob Schneider is, spewing out that chum, and all of a sudden encounters Jaws rising out of the water and turns around and tells Quint, we're gonna need a bigger boat. And as I think of the application of that to this, you're probably wondering what he's talking about. Is I see as I was reading the minutes from last month's meeting that I missed, and thank you, Vice Chair Moyer, for running the meeting. There's a lot of sort of guns and or butter conversation about are we going to be fixing up and maintaining our fleet? We're going to be growing. How do we balance the resources that we have against the plan for 2050 and the vision that we've prescribed? And it reminds me, as we got to the creation of the agency in the first place, that it was really an agency that was built on the notion of, creating something big and maybe a little bit back to the past, because we had a major ferry system in the Bay Area before we built the bridges that, was really definitional for the region. And then we lost that capacity, and then we slowly rebuilt it, and then we combined it, and then we fed the future with new funding and sort of new vision and energy. But we're clearly, based on the conversations we're having, which we should have, we're running up against it. We're going to have to think about the future, and I think we're going to need a bigger boat. I think we're going to need to think hard about future funding and start planning for the next phase. And how do we keep the momentum going towards being the kind of agency that we need to be to serve this region? Because I think as you look at the ridership of SF Bay Ferry compared to other systems and the positive public response to it, people want this system to succeed and they want it to grow. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity along the waterfront to do a lot of things if we can get people to and from. And so I'm hopeful that as we get into 2026, we can start to think really seriously about the next funding opportunities. How do we go about this? Right now, the only thing that's on the table is an operating measure, which we need to have, which is, it's a preservation measure. And we need to think about future capital funding and growth potential and those kinds of things. And, is that something we could do alone? Or is that something we need to do in partnership with other agencies? And I don't think that we're looking for answers today. But I'd like to ask, my colleagues on the board and the staff and Seamus, to be thinking about this because I think the public expects great things from this organization, and they're going to be even more excited about it when we start delivering battery electric vessels and doing that. And they're going to want it to grow, and they're going to be different parts of the region going to want to be part of this. So I'm excited about all of those things as we enter 2026. I want to thank the team of SF Bay Ferry. You're great, doing a great job, and the people who work on the vessels doing a great job. And really proud of this organization and excited to continue in the quest of ferrydom. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Moore.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman, and that was a very comprehensive summary that you gave of kind of where we are. We were kind of talking before the meeting started about the fact that we are officially in the second half of the decade, and the first half of the decade was, as everybody knows, challenging beyond belief. And I don't know, and January 8th of 2020, we thought we'd be where we are today and all that ensued in between. But it'll be interesting to see where we are on January 8th of 2030, and we have a lot of work to do, as Chair Wonderman just outlined, to kind of land the plane or land the vessel, as the case may be, with all that's underway. I'm super excited about it. It will be increasingly more challenging as each month goes by. It seems like things are getting a little bit more challenging fiscally, as well as from a labor and an environmental perspective. And I have every confidence that we are managing that as carefully and as closely as we can. I do also want to note, with sadness, I guess, the closing of the dry dock in the North Bay. That's just such a key part of our heritage here in the Bay Area, to have had a robust shipbuilding, ship repair industry, and to see it continuing to decline is a little bit heartbreaking. But hopefully they'll continue to be a place so that we can encourage and keep front of mind for policymakers and constituents alike the importance of the Bay and the opportunity that it provides for transportation and also emergency response. So looking forward to working with my colleagues and all of you throughout this next year and this second half of the decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Duke.
Thank you, Chair Wunderman. And yeah, I have to share a story from the Mare Island Dry Docks. I was elected in 2013, took office in 2014, and I was pregnant at the time. And so my oldest daughter, or my youngest daughter, she was born and was 2 months old when Mare Island Dry Docks opened. And I actually may have, without permission, gone down into the dry dock with the Polar Star there with the infant, and I have a picture underneath the propeller that I put on Facebook, and was promptly instructed to remove any evidence of being in the dry dock with an infant. But it was a very powerful moment, and it was really exciting to see the work they did over the years. At one point, they had almost 750 employees working. And it was just really bustling out there, and it was exciting to see not just the work happening there, and the pride that the folks on the mainland saw when they looked across the water and saw these vessels being worked on, but also the commerce that was happening on the island, like Mare Island Brewing Company. A lot of their business comes from those employees. There were food trucks out there serving them when they were, fully staffed. And so a lot of these things are, at risk. The waterfront restaurants, are going to be losing business because of this situation. So it's always a concern when you lose big employers and industrial jobs like this. And I really feel like, I'm excited about all of the talk and all of the initiative behind shipbuilding. And I am feeling like we have to be very intentional in not just focusing on the government side of things, because we have seen how that can change with different administrations. And we want to make sure that the shipbuilding industry is here to stay in the Bay Area. And so I hope that focus going forward is not just government, municipal transportation, but also all types of shipbuilding. And excited to see what can come from all of that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hannaberry.
Thank you, Chair Wunderman. So I had a real world experience with WETA today. I took the Cetus over, and they have a top-notch crew on that boat. I can tell you we were early. So I am very happy to be part of this world-class organization, professional from top to bottom. And I'm looking forward to 2026 and serving with my colleagues, and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year as well. So let me turn it over to our esteemed staff and our Executive Director, Seamus Murphy. Tell us, Seamus, what we need to know.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wunderman. You'll notice the Executive Director's report is very light this month, not because there isn't any work happening. We're of course busy doing a lot of things to further the vision that you just articulated with your remarks. And I really appreciate the picture of the needing a bigger boat. And it seems like a lot of what we're doing is focused on just the boat not getting smaller and trying to prevent that from happening. This ballot measure is certainly one of those things that needs to happen for the boat to just continue to be the size that it is. You'll notice in the executive director's report, we have some new grants that we received. One of them oriented towards operation on the for the Treasure Island service, which will begin as soon as that 150 passenger electric vessel gets here and can operate that route. So that's good news because it prevents that boat, our overall boat, from getting smaller. This item that we'll talk about today in South San Francisco and trying to right size that service and get it to a point where it's as financially sustainable as the rest of our services is in line with that effort too. But we'll need something major to happen for the boat to get bigger. And we are absolutely looking and thinking very hard about what that can be and thinking about what the right timing is for something like that and setting ourselves up for success. We've become a really critical feature of the region's transportation network. There's no doubt that we've earned a great reputation and a lot of recognition for bringing riders back. And we'll hear a little bit more about how 2025 wrapped up as far as ridership is concerned when we get to the ridership report. But before that, you have financial statements and a couple of legislative reports in your packet. If there are any questions on those, we're happy to respond if there are any questions or comments. Otherwise, I'll have Gabe up and provide a ridership report. Great. Gabe?
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. Gabriel Chan, Transportation Planner here at SF Bay Ferry. So as Seamus mentioned, 2025, we just closed out the year with some very encouraging signs on the ridership front. So in the packet, the report does not include ridership from December 30th. The report was prepared kind of before we had that information. Since then, we've included those numbers, and I have the updated figures here for you today. So we had almost 214,000 riders in December, which brings us to just over 100% of pre-pandemic December. So really encouraging signs. And then for the entire calendar year, we carried over 3 million passengers, the first time that we've done that since 2019. And then year over year, December, we saw about an 18% increase compared to 2024. And then a lot of the things that kind of contributed to that were the very strong commute numbers in the beginning of the month, paired with some good weather, as well as some of the promotional programs that our marketing and outreach folks have been doing. So in December, we sold 2,500 youth passes, as well as 1,800 day passes. And then we also had the Merry Ferry holiday rides that happened on December 7th, 12th, and 20th that also helped to get more folks out on the boats. And so as you know, the last part of December was a little bit rainy and we had the holidays, so there was a kind of a natural dip there, but we still finished the year very strong. Happy to take any questions.
Just quick question. How's it going with the with the new Clipper? What's the, it's mentioned, but what's the real experience?
So I think we'll have an update once we get it. I know MTC is still working through some issues on the technical side, but so far we haven't seen any complaints from our customers. Tom, I don't know if you have any other information. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So far it's going okay.
Is there happiness as well? Are there folks who are riding because they feel they have better access now? Do we see any of that? I know it's an anecdotal question.
Yeah, great question. Tom Hall, Director of Operations and Customer Experience. We don't have data yet on what the open payment looks like for December. That's where we see the real upside for this initial rollout of the features. Obviously, open payments were available to everyone as of December 10th. And so once we get that data from Clipper on what happened between December 10th and the end of the month for open payments, we would expect it to be pretty similar to BART, if not a little lower than what BART had experienced since it launched that earlier in 2025. They were seeing about 10% of riders were using open payments. That would be great for us because that means fewer interactions that we don't have to do onboard transactions, or people don't have to download the SF Bay Ferry app to get a ticket. So that's what we're hoping to see. We are collaborating closely with Clipper along with all the other transit agencies in terms of messaging all the new features that take place, because we do want to wait until all accounts are migrated to the next gen Clipper before we start talking about the low and no cost transfers, which are a huge game changer for us. We don't want to start talking about that when it's not available for everyone, especially with some of the migration issues that Clipper have been having. We expect at that point to get really positive feedback from our existing riders who have Clipper and use it every day, that they'll be able to transfer to Muni or BART at a much lower cost than they do today.
Thank you. Other aspects we want to cover, Gabe? Anything else?
Nope. That's all.
Questions? Comments? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So I was going to provide an update on the reliability report.
Yeah.
Nothing of note in the reliability report itself. We don't cover pilots in that report due to their particular nature. We don't want to compare them to the system as a whole. We did want to flag for you that the Oakland Alameda Water Shuttle did have its first extended downtime over the last week. So we had our biennial routine dry dock with the Coast Guard on the 29th of December, pre-scheduled. We knew we would be offline until the new year because of that. We knew we needed to do some hull painting, and obviously it was wet out, and we needed to give it time to dry, and our entire system was shut down on New Year's Day. Once we got the boat up and Coast Guard came and inspected, they did find some deficiencies on a hull weld, and so parts needed to be fabricated. A plate needed to be fabricated to make that weld hold. As of this morning, the vessel is back in service. So great thanks to Blue and Gold Fleet and Svensson's Bay Marine for getting Woodstock back up and operational. Sort of luckily or unluckily, it happened during the holidays and the weather was pretty poor the entire time it was offline. So we've typically seen really low ridership when it's raining out. People don't like walking down or riding their bike down to a pretty open vessel and riding on it when it's nasty out. So if there was a perfect time to do it, this was probably it. But of course, huge thanks to our partners at the City of Alameda, TMA, and Jack London Square for being understanding about these things happening when you have a one boat service with no spares. Happy to answer any questions about that or the reliability report.
Yeah, I looked over the report. Looks very reliable. Those are big numbers. So congratulations on yeah.
Tom, I'm curious, thank you for that report, and I agree, the reliability is held in there very strongly, especially with some inclement weather here at the end of the year and the beginning of this year. So well done on that. Are there conversations about having any kind of plan B for this vessel, given the Alameda Tunnel work and potentially a larger drive of folks boarding needing to rely on our service? If I could articulate that better, I would, but
no, that's
you
a
get
great
the question.
I understand completely, and that's a great question. Our team, led by Mike Garrity, has been talking quite a bit with both the Alameda CTC and the City of Alameda about potential mitigations. We know that the project planners are going to be sending people to the ferry. So the water shuttle, we are working with the team to determine if we're going to be able to do enhanced weekend service on the water shuttle beginning in March, going through the summer. They have received some additional grant funding that could make that possible. It's a bit logistically tricky because you're balancing 3 crews a day versus 2, and the demand is not really there on the shoulders. So we worked hard with Blue and Gold Fleet to do that expanded schedule last summer. We're looking at whether it's worth bringing that back for the OAAP to help that. We've also had conversations about potentially adding additional short hop service between Main Street, Alameda, and Oakland with a not to besmirch Woodstock, but a normal sized boat. And we're not sure that that's the right fit. And we haven't made great progress on that just because we don't have available vessels to do that because of our service levels that we're running right now. And there's not really the vessels available to carry a bunch of bikes. And we would think that that would be the necessary solution there, just because there's not a lot of transit density on the Alameda side. And so once you cross the estuary, how do you get to where you actually need to go if there's not that there? If you can bring a bike with you, that's great. If you can't bring your bike because there's not bike capacity on the vessel, it's a bit tricky. So Mike's team, if you have additional questions, I definitely defer those to Mike. But we've been having those conversations with all of the players dealing with OAAP. And it's definitely also gone into later on the agenda, the South San Francisco study. OAAP has been a major factor in our thinking around that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Given the long period of inclement weather, did we have to pull vessels out of service during that time? Did things get to the point where we needed to pull back?
No, it's really a credit to our operators, our captains and deckhands to be able to operate during some of the worst weather we've had. I don't think we had a single weather-related cancellation during the storms. I do think that if Woodstock was in the water, we might have been a little touch and go there for a while due to the winds and the king tides combined with the storm surge. But we didn't have any weather-related impacts that I can recall from the past couple of weeks. And it's really a credit to the operators for operating the vessels safely and being in tune with what the weather is looking like. And then the reliability report really comes down to Tim Hanners and Jeff Powell's team working with Blue and Gold Engineering to make sure that we have enough vessels to run our operations on a daily basis. You know, knock on wood, but this is usually the time of year when we're holding on, white knuckling it through some vessel issues, and so far so good in the new year, and we have enough vessels to run the service reliably.
Thank you. That's great. Any other questions, Mr. Hall? All right, thanks, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wonderman. That concludes the Executive Director's report.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's move on to our consent calendar, item number 6. Items A and B. It's the minutes from last month, as well as a contract award to Bay Ship and Yacht for the Lyra. Is any reason to pull either of them off? If not, I'll take a motion on the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Could you call the roll, please, Melanie?
And there's no public comment from anybody on my end.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me to
No problem. Vice
that small, important legal distinction.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Du,
Yes.
and Director Henneberry.
Yes.
The consent calendar carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 7, approve actions relative to RFQ 25-056 Seaplane Lagoon Electrification Materials Procurement.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Wonderman and members of the board. My name is Min Tran. I'm a project manager in the engineering and project delivery team at San Francisco Bay Ferry. And today we're requesting for the approval of actions related to RFQ 25-056 for the Seaplane Lagoon Ferry Terminal Electrification Materials Procurement. We recommend for the board to approve for the contract award to Wesco Distribution in the amount of $395,000. And we also request for the executive director to negotiate and enter into an agreement and take any additional actions necessary in support of this work. The Seaplane Lagoon Ferry Terminal Electrification Project is part of Phase 2 of SF Bay Ferry's REEF program. This project will ultimately make Alameda Seaplane Lagoon the first San Francisco Bay Ferry terminal in the East Bay to be electrified, supporting the first zero-emission trans-bay ferry service in operation. This procurement is for the purchase of long lead time electrical equipment, which is necessary to connect the medium voltage power from the local utility and connect that to the vessel chargers, which will be located on the universal charging float, which the board previously approved back in November. The execution of this procurement is necessary in order to ensure that the Seaplane Lagoon Ferry Terminal landside electrification project remains on schedule and is timely in order to ensure electrified ferry service from our new 400-passenger electric ferries, which the board also previously approved. This continues the momentum for landside infrastructure work and improvements necessary in support of the REEF program. The procurement for the electrification materials leveraged the Omnia Government Cooperative Agreement with Wesco Distribution. This is the same type of procurement method which was previously used for the Treasure Island Ferry Terminal electrification equipment procurement, which I previously came to the board to as well. This Omnia Government Cooperative Agreement was developed from a competitive bid process between Omnia partners and qualified vendors. And this allows for companies such as Wesco Distribution to have a streamlined procurement process and a standardized agreement that is in support by federal and state governmental agencies. This agreement has been fully reviewed by SF Bay Ferry's legal team, and it's been verified that it's in full compliance of SF Bay Ferry's administrative code. The SF Bay Ferry project team has also been working closely with the local Bay Area staff at Wesco Distribution to finalize their proposal, and we've confirmed that Wesco will meet all of our technical and delivery requirements, certified by America compliance, and has provided reasonable pricing, which is below our independent cost estimate. The procurement is fully funded by Alameda Measure BB funds, and it's included in the FY 25-26 capital budget, which allocates a total of $1.1 million for this fiscal year for the Seaplane Lagoon Landside Ferry Terminal Electrification Project. The exact contract award amount for this contract is $395,087.08. So in closing, staff recommend awarding the contract to Wesco Distribution and authorizing the executive director to move forward with this procurement. This procurement ensures the timely delivery of materials which are critical to advance SF Bay Ferry's electrification efforts as we continue to grow and expand our zero-emission ferry service network across the region. With that, I'll take any questions or comments you may have.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like a very well thought out process that we went forward with. Any comments, questions from the board?
Men, thank you very much. I'm very much in favor of this contracting approach. So thank you for that. I just want to confirm that within the agreement with Wesco, there are standard indemnity provisions and performance provisions. There are no nothing about this process. Let me rephrase that. We are using our standard form of contract.
We are correct. And so we had our wonderful legal team, including Steve, review the government cooperative agreement, and we confirmed that it meets all of our indemnification and insurance requirements.
And what about performance standards? Are there any performance standards?
The performance standards in the agreement align with what is standard practice for electrical distribution equipment in that effect. And then we also have added extended warranty and commissioning services as part of this procurement as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Are there any, let's get a motion first, maybe. Do you want to make a comment? Yes, please.
You mentioned, so this is being paid for with Measure BB funds,
Correct.
100%?
100% of this contract award will be paid by those funds, to my understanding.
Thank you.
How much of those funds for water transit remain behind? Do you know?
I am not aware of the exact amount. I would need to defer to our finance team for that.
Aaron, do you know?
We receive annual allocations, as you know, from the sales tax, about 2 million a year, I want to say. And so right now we have everything through the fiscal year 27 budget allocated. We do have fund balances, but it's only because the project expenses haven't happened yet. So we definitely have all of those funds budgeted in the capital program for anything it's eligible for.
Got it.
And because it's nice flexible money in terms of, what we can spend it on, we tend to use it when we have these examples of like long lead time is happening early in the process before perhaps we've executed larger grants for bigger construction projects. So we often will use it for something like this where, it's not easy, but it is a simple way to kind of get a project going up and going.
It's all capital funding, right?
I don't think it's technically limited, but that's what we've been using it for 100%. Yes.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? I'll take a
move
motion
appro-
and we can, go ahead.
I move approval. Thank you.
We've got a motion.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Melanie, has anyone signed up on this item?
Nobody has signed up to speak.
Anyone wish to discuss this pertinent item before us? If not, let's take a roll.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Du,
yes.
and Director Hannah-Berry.
Yes.
The item passes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice job. Thank you. Item number 8, approve amendment to agreement with Blue and Gold Fleet for 6-month extension.
Great. Thank you, Chair Wonderman. So 2 months ago, the board authorized us to release an RFP for operating and maintenance and repair services for our fleet. Obviously, a big deal for us to be able to do that. In the ensuing months, we've continued to press ahead, really at full speed to get this going. We do recognize at this point that it would behoove the agency to extend the existing contract with Blue and Gold Fleet an additional 6 months. The details are in the board memo. One of the key things is just lining up the new agreement onto the fiscal year. Really, this is going to be a hugely impactful contract. It's our entire operating budget, which is currently about $70 million a year. And so lining that up so we're not impacting multiple budget years was key. Obviously, we're going to be seeing a transition on our finance leadership soon, and being able to provide a nice buffer and transition to that is important. Honestly, we want to get this right as well. So, we're really sharpening our pencils and checking and rechecking everything now to get this on the streets. We want to give the submitters enough time. This is a huge project for them to just put together a competitive proposal. And so we want to make sure any potential proposer has enough time to ask the right questions and submit a very good proposal. And then from an evaluation standpoint, we need to take as much time as we can to do it right. We also want to give the board the opportunity to not be under the gun to make a decision once we are ready to request approval of a new agreement. So it just made sense that 6 months was the right timing. We're not looking to put off release of the RFP any further. We're prepared to do that this month in any case, but we thought at this point it was prudent to ask for that extension. We have talked to Blue and Gold about this. Obviously, this is a two-party situation. So before we brought this to you, we did get sign off from Blue and Gold that they were willing to stick with the existing contract for an additional 6 months, just tacked on to the end of it with no term adjustments whatsoever. Happy to answer any questions about that.
No, thanks. And, clearly getting it right is job one here. What is the timing for release of the RFP?
We are targeting, I'm putting additional pressure on myself by saying this out loud, but January 20th is our target release.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? This is an action item, so I'll take a motion.
I move approval of the 6-month extension.
Second,
Okay, we have motion and second. Do we have any folks signed up to speak on this item?
I don't see anybody signed up to speak.
Anyone wish to speak on the item either here or in the virtual world? I don't see any hands up. Okay, with that, let's close the item and call the roll, please.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Du,
yes.
and Director Hannah-Berry.
Yes.
The item passes.
Okay, the next item is an informational item number 9 on the South San Francisco service study.
Moving right along today. Good
I know, I'm
afternoon.
not getting my money's worth today.
Well, actually, before we get into the South City one, if you'll indulge me for a second, I was waiting for Seamus or Tom to add this to the ridership report, but breaking $3 million or 3 million riders this year, second time we've done it, second highest ridership in the history of the organization. So I think that's something everyone in this room can be really
Thank
proud
you for reiterating that. That's great.
And not to put any more pressure on Tom, but we'll go for 4 million. This is right.
Sorry. Great. Mike Already, Director of Planning. I'll be presenting the informational item on the South San Francisco service study. So this is a study and a process that we initiated last year. I believe Tom came to the board in May and presented the outline for a study that the board had been requesting over the years for us to initiate, to take a look at our South San Francisco service and potentially come up with some strategies through a consensus-based process that could address some underperformance on the route. The goal, in terms of underperformance, the service was launched in 2012. It's been successful in some regards, but hasn't quite hit the mark in terms of ridership, service productivity, or financial performance that our other routes have that we currently operate. And so the approach on the study, again, was to really not kind of impose a solution on the service and the riders that rely on it and the employers that rely on it to get their employees to work, but really work with those stakeholders, the employees, our public partners at the city of South San Francisco and the county of San Mateo to come up with a strategy that would meet our needs to ensure long-term financial sustainability for the service. Our goal for financial sustainability isn't just about a fiscal cliff issue. It's about the opportunity cost of the limited funds that we have available. The more money that we put into a service that doesn't meet our standards, that underperforms our expectations, the less money we have to get that bigger boat to pursue expansion and service enhancement efforts. So this is really an effort to make sure that we take the limited operating subsidy funds we have available to us and get them as far as we can to building the most robust ferry system that we can for the region. We'll walk through a couple slides today. Today's item really reflects a summary of the outcome of this study. There's a pretty comprehensive written report, and I'm just going to kind of highlight a few things I think of note from that written report and kind of summarize where we stand today and what the path is going forward. I guess a slide, please. Yeah. And next.
Next slide, please.
And then next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
And then next slide, please. Great, thank you. This timeline was put together to show a summary of what we think is a pretty robust stakeholder engagement process that engaged members of a technical advisory working group, which was comprised of employers, some of our public partners, other interest group representatives, and then a very equally robust public outreach process that featured in-person virtual open houses, as well as a survey that received over 1,500 responses. So this was a true team effort at San Francisco Bay Ferry. In terms of our ops and marketing team, Tom and Lexi were instrumental in helping. The planning group, Dory, Gabe, our transportation planning intern, Elisa, put together a lot of materials and organized the Transit Advisory Working Group. And then Lauren and Terrence in government relations really helped to make sure we were talking to the right people at Oyster Point and the right people who were involved in our working group. So kudos to the staff involved in that. We ended up having 4 meetings in a 6-month period with the working group. And it was an opportunity to vet the options that we were carrying forward, and then also vet the outcome of the study that we'll talk about a bit more here. So in addition to those meetings of the working group, we had the public outreach process, and we also had one-on-one meetings with several of the principal stakeholders of the service, which included employers, as well as our public partners at the city and the county. Next slide, please. So just to kind of revisit at one point the initial options that we put forward for potentially transforming the service and achieving our goal of financial sustainability. With the advisement of the transit or the technical advisory working group, we brought forward 2 route change ideas that would kind of reconfigure the service and potentially increase ridership or reduce costs, and 4 operational changes that none of which in themselves would necessarily achieve the goal of the project, but could be paired with some of the route change options to achieve what we were after. So the route change options, the 2 that we initially considered prior to initiating public outreach was option A, which was a configuration where we removed one of the stops, the Main Street stop, in the Oakland, Alameda, South San Francisco service. This would have allowed us to kind of streamline the operation and actually add a fourth trip in the AM and the fourth trip in the PM by operating just between Oakland and Alameda. So that we saw as an opportunity to potentially tap a source of ridership that may be looking for greater service frequency, more options on the trip. A second option was probably the more transformative of the two that we considered. And this was really reimagining the service into South San Francisco, reimagining it from a direct connection from the East Bay to a connection from San Francisco that provided an opportunity for riders originating in the East Bay, North Bay, and other points served by transit in the Bay Area to get to San Francisco and then make the connection onto our boat going down to South San Francisco. So again, we thought that was an option that could, move the needle in terms of ridership demand, and certainly would reduce cost for operating the service. And then in addition to that, we looked at a menu of potential operational change options, including fare increases, potential different vessels that may or may not have been available to use, reducing the service from 5 days to 4 days, so potentially not offering the service on Fridays, and then enhancing the partner subsidy, the money coming from either public or private and stakeholders to the service. Next slide. And so we developed those options with the input from the working group and then initiated a pretty robust public outreach process, and we learned a lot. Top level lesson that we learned is that there was very little appetite to transform the service fundamentally from what it is today amongst not only riders, but also non-riders of the service. So these are stakeholders that we engaged in the public that either traveled on the service from the East Bay or worked at Oyster Point. So there in general was a desire to keep the service configuration, making some amount of intermediate stops at Alameda on the way to South San Francisco intact. So of the other options that we showed in the previous slide, the strongest reservations were probably with the more transformative of the two options, and that was the option that would have redefined the service as a connecting as a service from San Francisco to South San Francisco. There was a lot of reservation about that with the public. Other kind of key findings from the public outreach, there was an interest in potentially making some tweaks to the schedule to better align the current service with the needs of employees traveling to Oyster Point. There was concern about the project that we just discussed a bit earlier, the Oakland Alameda Access Project, and that if we were to do something differently on the service, it could impact the ability of riders to access the service in light of the impact of that project. So that was the feedback we heard on the service side, which was overall, hey, is there a way that we can keep this service in its current form? On the financial side, somewhat surprisingly and maybe uniquely for a transit operator, we actually heard that there was an appetite amongst the riders to increase the fare if that meant preserving the service in its current form. Additionally, from partners on both the private and public side, there was likewise an interest in potentially making a contribution to the service to offset some of the operating costs, again, if it meant preserving the service in its current form. And then overlaying all of that, there was a desire for no matter what we do going forward to be able to test that in a limited duration trial period to see ultimately what it would take through that trial period to sustain the service on a long-term basis. Next slide, please. So where did we end up? In taking the feedback, we're going forward with 4 goals in what will ultimately be a trial period for a modified version of the current service. Goals are increasing ridership and service productivity, increasing awareness of the service, achieving financial sustainability, and maintaining customer satisfaction. In terms of what the trial will look like, again, based on that input from the public and our stakeholders, we're going to maintain the service largely in its current form. So that means, by and large, keeping the Main Street departures, which we heard, again, was really important in light of the Oakland Alameda Access Project going forward. We're going to try to increase the appeal of the service by better coordinating the service schedule with the Oakland Alameda Water Shuttle. which is provides an opportunity for Alameda riders to get to the Oakland terminal. Even though there was an appetite to increase the fare among current riders, we feel as an agency, it's really important to make the services broadly available to a wide range of people from different economic backgrounds. And so we're not proposing at this point to increase the fare of the service. We want to keep it aligned with our current fare structure, which is really premised on being competitive with other modes of transit in the region. Additionally, during the trial period, we're going to conduct some route-specific marketing to increase awareness of the service. And then the trial period is ultimately, at the end of the day, going to give us an opportunity to identify what that additional partner subsidy would be. That could ultimately allow us to achieve the financial sustainability to operate the service in its current form over the long term. Next slide, please. So at a high level, I think a really important outcome of the study for us is that there wasn't an appetite for a dramatic transformation of the service. There's a strong desire to keep a version of the current service intact. And so that's probably about 90% of what the outcome is. The final 10% of the outcome is of that existing service that we're going to carry forward in the trial period. What are the small tweaks we can make to make the service more appealing to the employers that use it? And I'm going to turn over this slide on that discussion over to Tom, who can give you a sense of where we're at with the schedule modification.
Great, thanks, Mike. So as Mike mentioned, this is a relatively small portion of the overall study and the agreement that we're seeking to come to with the stakeholders in Oyster Point and in the East Bay. That said, there are no minor schedule changes if you ride the ferry. Everything has a big impact on your day-to-day life, and we acknowledge that, and that's why we're spending a lot of time to try to get this piece right, because when we look at the schedule and you see 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, that could mean the difference between someone being able to take the ferry or having to get into their car and drive to work due to school drop-offs, daycare pickups, and everything else that's going on in their lives. So we're spending a lot of time right now with our stakeholders, really the employers through Oyster Point Mobility to really fine tune this. Talking to riders, obviously, if you're trying to optimize a schedule, the optimal schedule for 400 different people is probably going to be 400 different schedules, and we can't do that. And so we're trying to find the best use of our resources to positively impact the commute of as many people as possible. We do also have operational timelines. So this our next schedule change takes effect on March 9th, and that's when we really want to start the clock on the trial period so that we can get to resolution a year after that. And so to get a schedule in effect on March 9th, between our own work internally and obviously Blue and Gold Fleet's work to get bids out and get crew members signed up for those schedules, we really have limited time between now and the deadline for that. So we're working hard with the stakeholders. And honestly, with the riders, we have a survey currently open through tomorrow where we're asking existing and potential riders to talk to us about these two schedule options. I think some riders may be joining the meeting today via Zoom and have some feedback for us, some additional feedback for us. But we take great pride in trying to maximize the benefit of our service with these little schedule tweaks. That's why, you know, even though it annoys some passengers, we do make at least one tweak, it seems, every schedule change somewhere, because we're just trying to make things better for as many people as possible. So we're going to continue to do that. Eventually, we will come to an agreement with Oyster Point Mobility representing the stakeholders on what schedule to go with here. There may be some additional minor modifications, improvements to these schedules where we can find it within the schedule. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mike. Great. Next slide, please. So this, while we're kind of summarizing the outcome of the study process here, we're ending that process and kind of beginning the trial period phase process. So this exhibit shows a representation of what we're looking at over the next 12 to 18 months in terms of launching the trial period. So the trial period for the service will begin in March, and we're formally running the trial through the following March. And at that point, we'll be doing an evaluation of the service.
In reality, we'll probably at least continue operating the service as is for the remainder of that fiscal year through the end of June. What we're going to do with the results that we get through that year-long period from March to March is, again, characterize what it's going to take for the service to continue operating in its present form over the long term. And then we'll use the board adoption of the fiscal year 2028 service operations budget as an opportunity to formalize what actually happens with the service going forward. Next slide, please. So a kind of recent piece that we have developed as part of the study is what the criteria underlying the evaluation of the trial period will be. So this has been shared again with the working group, and it'll be the criteria that we carry forward to base the evaluation of the trial period on. The first and most important goal, again, the primary objective of this entire initiative is achieving financial feasibility. And so the way that we've defined our expectation concerning this is that the service should maintain or should achieve a fare box recovery ratio similar to the other routes operated by WETA. So again, this gets back to making sure that we're using the limited subsidy that we have available in the most efficient way possible so that we can do as much expansion, as much enhancement as we can. One thing, a provision that we're proposing for this metric is that fare box revenue doesn't literally have to only be fare box revenue. It can also include contributions, local contributions. So what we're calling partner subsidies, and those can come from either a private origination or a public origination, such as a local sales tax measure. Next slide, please. Beyond financial feasibility, sustainability, there are two other goals shown here that in the course of doing our public outreach, we heard loud and clear as really important for the service going forward. And the first is increasing awareness. So this is making sure that potential new riders that aren't using the service are aware that the service exists. They're aware of the benefit the service offers. They're aware of the very high ride quality that we work hard to offer for our riders and all of our services. So increased awareness is another goal. And the second goal shown on this slide is while we're seeking to appeal to potential new riders, we need to make sure that we maintain satisfaction amongst the existing riders that we serve. So we have a very high level across the board of customer satisfaction. So no matter what kind of changes we do going forward on the service, we need to make sure that we maintain that satisfaction. Next slide, please. And the last goal here, the last criteria that will evaluate the trial period duration against are the goals of increasing ridership and service productivity. So notwithstanding the service achieving its financial goals that we expect to see grounded in achieving financial sustainability, it's really important that the service achieve similar performance as our other routes in terms of ridership and service productivity. So if we were to solve the financial part of the puzzle, what this goal is signaling is that we still have expectations in terms of the ridership that the route will serve and the productivity of the service. And this is really important for us as an agency to show that our services are having impact for the region. So the expectation here is that, again, similar to financial performance, the service would achieve the same performance in terms of ridership and service productivity as our other routes. Realistically, we don't expect that to be achieved over the next year, but what we are expecting, what we are hoping to see is progress made towards that goal. Long term, we did want to establish that the goal is achieving similar performance as the other routes. Next slide, please. So last slide here to wrap up. Immediate term next steps, we're going to be working to define the final schedule that will be implemented for the trial period. That'll launch in March of this year and run at least through March of next year, likely to the end of fiscal year 2027. In terms of that goal of increasing awareness, our marketing team is going to be working to develop a promotional package that we can distribute to the employers to help the route specific marketing that we hope to do. And then after this trial period commences, we're going to be continuing to engage and work with the potential partners that we hope will provide the subsidy needed,
the additional subsidy needed long-term to continue operating the services. So those are partners at employers in the Oyster Point area, as well as our public partners at the city and the county. We're going to be working with them to establish a framework agreement for providing that money that we anticipate will be required to continue operating the service in its current form. That concludes the overview of the item. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments you have on the report.
Yeah, thanks, Mike and Thomas. Obviously, a lot of work went into looking deeply at an issue that, you know, in the big picture doesn't affect that many people. So I think it just says a lot about the organization that we care enough to really dig deep when it comes to satisfying our customers and understanding their needs and wanting to make sure that they stay our customers and that their lives are, you know, positively impacted by the service. And I value that. I think that's part of the core competency of SF Bay Ferry. I was wondering, you know, as you're doing the reach out on this, you know, as I started using this service myself years ago, and I went to Oakland Terminal, and the boat wasn't going to San Francisco, it was going to South San Francisco, and I wondered about that because there were three, and then at the time, I think there were three terminals, and you know, just from Oakland and Alameda, and then there were four with Seaplane, and then there was Richmond, and there was always Vallejo. So you know, it sort of struck me that you know, it would maybe make more sense to be having the South San Francisco service coming out of San Francisco, where all of those systems could kind of come in there, and it's sort of more of a hub and spoke kind of model. And yet we didn't do it that way. And then when you query the folks who you know, most of the people you're asking are the ones who use the service, so it's not surprising they like it the way it is because they're using it the way it is. Is there any way to assess the potential ridership from San Francisco? You know, given what you said, you've got Golden Gate Ferry coming in, we've got a whole bunch of our routes coming in. You know, it's limited even with Main Street and Oakland. It's limited as to the service that we're providing over to South City. And, you know, in that way, which may explain why the ridership isn't what we'd like it to be. So are we satisfied that, I think there was mentioned either in writing or you said, you know, that there wasn't a lot of interest in this, but do we know that there isn't a lot of interest in it potentially? Because it just seemed to me, you know, the way South City is that people are coming from all over to go to those jobs in the mostly in the biotech industry there.
Yeah, I will certainly acknowledge that the scope of the study wasn't able to take a truly comprehensive region-wide market assessment of where that best connection for a ferry service to San Francisco should originate from. But you know, within the resources that we had available, we did manage to do some analysis that helped inform, I think, some insight, if not an answer to the question that you had. So we did look at overall travel demand patterns, agnostic of ferry or transit, just travel demand patterns in general, and did find that in terms of trans-bay crossings, the corridor from the East Bay was the largest potential market. The majority of employees arriving at Oyster Point, they live in the peninsula or the city already, and so they're not traveling trans-bay. But if you were to provide a direct connection from a trans-bay location to San Francisco, the East Bay was the strongest potential market. You know, it doesn't, you know, the option to run the service from San Francisco to South San Francisco wouldn't preclude someone from the East Bay from using it, but that transfer dynamic just created a lot of reservation amongst not only current riders but potential future riders. And so you know, I think those were the insights we got. The other point of kind of reference we had were some of the transportation coordinators that work at the employers. So they're obviously interested in, you know, the ability of the current riders to continue using the service as is, but they also have other employees that could be future riders of the service. And so we were looking for their perspective on what made sense to them. And what we heard from them was the current service is the one that we find most appealing.
Yeah, and I've watched both from Main Street and Oakland, folks getting off the vessels at the end of the day, and they look like happy riders. They look very satisfied with the service that we've been providing. So it's not surprised by that.
To that note, just to flag, so our initial survey of riders and non-riders had about 1,500 responses. Not all of those were riders. If they were, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
But we did hear from non-riders who currently live in the East Bay and drive to Oyster Point, and were not particularly interested either. I think it was close to 50-50 on just those riders, whether they would use the service that connected to at San Francisco because of the need to then get to San Francisco. Do they take a boat from somewhere else in the East Bay?
Yeah.
Do they jump on BART? If they're getting on BART, why not take it all the way to South San Francisco and jump on a commute.org shuttle? So there are a lot of little factors there. We also saw very little interest in the reverse commute. I think the Caltrain electrification has really positively impacted ridership on the entire Caltrain corridor. And so we're not seeing a lot of interest from folks who live down in South San Francisco or the surrounding areas that they would need to make their way to the ferry terminal and then come up north on a ferry. There wasn't a whole lot of demand there.
Yeah.
And frankly, we thought there would be some recreational or non-commute interest from South San Francisco residents to just take the ferry up to San Francisco. Very little interest is what we got. Folks that responded to that point said that they would ride it a couple of times a year, which doesn't sustain a service. So I think we're pretty confident based on that survey that our intuition, which was the same as yours, that type of spoken model concept could really work for South San Francisco. I think that first survey and the pretty loud feedback that we heard from the employers and the existing riders convinced us that wasn't the right path forward at this time.
Chair Winterman, I'll just point out that your concept it's a good concept, and it does merit further exploration. And we're going to have a good shot at testing it out in real time when the Mission Bay service launches, because that will be a service where, whether you're coming in on BART or Golden Gate Ferry or on any of our other services, you'll be able to transfer to our electric vessel and get to Mission Bay with a pretty easy commute. And we'll see how many people are coming from other modes and coming from other routes to use that service. So, and if it works, if that concept works, we're never going to be done optimizing our system. So it is something we might incorporate in the future based on that.
Thanks. Let's hear from the board first, and then I know there's folks with hands raised, and maybe others here in the audience. So,
just a quick question. I was wondering if UCSF has been part of the conversations.
So UCSF has not been a part of the South San Francisco study. We've been doing pretty strong outreach with them on Mission Bay related matters, but not South City at this point.
Okay. It's a little premature, but soon, by the end of it, maybe.
There is some future development happening, more development happening at South City, right?
There's a tremendous long-term potential for transit service into Oyster Point. And this is one of the things I think we're really motivated to find a way to make this service work. Because if we can get to that future where the development pipeline materializes in South San Francisco, it could be a very successful, highly successful, robust ferry service. And we've seen that we've pulled the data in some of the early planning work we did for the 2050 business plan in terms of characterizing the long-term growth potential of some of our routes. And there could be up to twice as much, I think 2, possibly 3 times as much office space development in Oyster Point than there currently is today. So we just have to make it to that point in a financially sustainable way.
We're waiting for the Solano South City service, so it may take a while for that route to come to fruition. Let's go to the public. Amelia, are folks signed up who are present here who would like to speak?
So we have a number of speakers, and please forgive me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, and feel free to correct me. We're going to start with Hao Ran Lu. Please go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning, members of the board. My name's Haran Liu, and I'm a daily commuter from Alameda to South San Francisco. In 2021, I purchased my home in Alameda specifically because of this ferry service. It allowed me to avoid gridlock while supporting regional environmental sustainability. I'm here because the proposed changes to the South SF service route would fundamentally disrupt my ability to get to work. Currently, my commute is already over 100 minutes, one way door to door. Adding a SF transfer would push that to well over 2 hours, which means over 4 hours per day spent on the road or on the waters in this case, and not with my family. That is not a commute. That is a barrier to employment and a massive hit on my quality of life. Additionally, as we all know, there's no other direct public transportation routes, at least not to my knowledge, between Alameda and South San Francisco that currently offers an alternative option. So it really makes Alameda residents like myself feel marginalized based on the proposed long-term change. The board's benchmark for this pilot is to double ridership. However, the proposed trial schedule actually removes the 7:05 a.m. Alameda departure. Given that the vessel already passes Alameda Main Street on its way to Oakland, removing the stop saves negligible time and costs, but loses an entire segment of current riders. Furthermore, the pilot coincides with the Alameda Oakland Access Project construction. While this construction makes the ferry more essential than ever to bypass gridlock, it also creates local traffic hurdles that could artificially suppress your pilot results. Setting a double ridership goal while removing stops and ignoring regional construction creates a failure by design scenario that doesn't accurately reflect the route's potential. I also want to highlight the lack of coordination with the Oakland Alameda water taxi. It currently doesn't run on Mondays, and its earliest Tuesday to Friday departure is 7:20 a.m., missing the first two South SF ferries entirely. If we want double ridership and plan to reduce or eliminate Alameda service, we must make it possible for people to actually reach the terminal from Alameda. Finally, please know that we want this route to succeed. I represent a large group of employees at Genentech who use this ferry daily. We have an internal community ready to advocate for SF Bay Ferry with our employers, but we need a service that is sellable. We are happy to help with outreach and work with you to ensure the long-term viability and growth of the service, but we ask the board to reconsider the SF detour and keep the direct East Bay to South SF connection. In closing, please don't jeopardize a vital link for East Bay workers. Keep the 7:05 a.m. Alameda stop, align the water taxi schedule, and work with us to grow this route instead of making it untenable. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak today, and thank you on behalf of the community and the riders for the essential work that you are leading.
Thank you.
Next, we have Alicia Dent. Go ahead.
Hello. So I am also a Genentech employee, and while I currently do not use the South San Francisco service because I live in Richmond, and so that service is not truly accessible to me or would be rather inconvenient for me to use, I was actually rather open to the option of having a connector from San Francisco to South San Francisco because I also know a number of people who live north of Emeryville, where the highways basically split and there's always congestion there. That would make it really hard for us to get into that kind of Jack London area to kind of utilize that service. And so being able to utilize the Richmond ferry and then having a connector would really open up that option for a lot of us to be able to commute into work. And so again, with our company policy being that we're having to be spend most of our time on site, which means we're spending probably at least 4 to 5 days probably commuting. And I'm one of those people who commute almost every day. This would really be a lifeline for me, and I know a number of others who live north of the Emeryville area, especially since our own Genentech ferry service has ended as of last year. And I know some of us kind of filled out that survey maybe prior to or didn't even consider it prior to that service ending because we were also kind of, that was kind of more of a abrupt decision. And so I think there could be some more folks willing to utilize a connector service that didn't necessarily realize or understand that we had other options that were going away. And so I would really like for that idea, I know maybe the survey you're saying it wasn't entirely comprehensive, but maybe you got a strong feeling that folks would not necessarily utilize it. But I also know folks who have planned their commute around, what the commute options were. And so I know most of the folks tend to stay on the peninsula because it just reduces the congestion for them. But I think it opens up East Bay for more people if they know that there are options to get to South San Francisco, given that, again, if there were connecting options for them. And so I do wonder about what these reservations were around the South San Francisco connector, or, how this information was gathered or sampled so that, again, more robust responses could be captured to have a really full picture of how many folks would actually utilize that service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Virginia Nito, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Virginia Nido. I'm also a Genentech employee. I've been a South San Francisco ferry rider for 10 years. And I just want to say thank you so much for your work on looking into the various options to preserve this ferry route. As someone said earlier, you cannot please everyone. There are probably, 1,500 different needs that came out in that survey. The proposal, as was just presented, is perfect for me. The ferry was fantastic, is fantastic, will be even better leaving 15 minutes earlier so that I can get to meetings at the top of the hour. Many of us who ride this ferry service have been doing so for many years. We are indeed pretty happy ferry riders. And I think a lot of us are ferry evangelists and would be quite pleased to talk to our neighbors and colleagues who aren't ferry riders to help increase ridership. My final comment is that the only thing that I think I didn't see considered and maybe could be after the pilot period is actually cutting one run, which would be the early morning, currently leaving at 6:20. I do take it from time to time, but that is pretty low ridership. Similarly, if we had to give up an afternoon run, perhaps the one that's currently leaving at 3:20 could be sacrificed in order to save the route. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next we have Lauren Bennett.
Trying to get the video to work. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Lauren Bennett. I am the Senior Director of Transportation for Genentech. In this role, I lead our people, transportation, and commute programs. I'm also representing Oyster Point Mobility, which has been mentioned a few times. We are a coalition of employers and property owners within the San Francisco Biotech Business District. And I'm speaking today on behalf of both entities, Genentech and OPM, Oyster Point Mobility, to emphasize that ferry service from Oakland and Alameda is a critical pillar of our commute infrastructure. For Genentech and our neighboring employers, which include AbbVie, Amgen, Stripe, and over 200 other businesses, this service is not a luxury. It is a necessity for the recruitment and retention of top-tier talent residing in the East Bay. The Oyster Point Business District continues to see significant forward momentum, with employee populations trending upward, and the recent announcement of UCSF's new lab space opening in 2027, our density is only increasing. And to sustain this growth, we must have robust direct transit options. Without the direct ferry service, our community's ability to advance groundbreaking science and deliver life-saving medicines is fundamentally hindered. We fully support the pilot program and are committed to the long-term partnership with WETA, and we are prepared to leverage our collective strengths to ensure the financial health and long-term viability of the route. I want to thank WETA, their staff, Tom and Mike, for their tireless efforts in collaborating with us, with our riders, and just for this whole process. And I know we haven't decided exactly what we're going to roll out yet, but we're with you in the long haul to get there. And we know this is difficult, and thank you so much for your efforts on this.
And thank you. There are other folks signed up.
Nobody else has signed up to speak.
Would anyone else who's either here or on Zoom wish to make a comment? You could raise your hand. Okay, want to thank the folks who did speak and others who I think are on and listening, for your participation. We really appreciate that. And anytime there's a change in service that's proposed in any direction, as was pointed out, because the service doesn't come every 10 minutes. It is effectively sporadic. You have to plan your time around vessels that are coming once on the hour or thereabouts. It's not it's not a easy to make change and so forth. So this is an information item. The board's not taking action on this today, and I think fair to say we'll be talking with the staff about what we heard in terms of the comments and to see if there's things we can do to make this successful as possible. My goal is always to be increasing service, not decreasing it, and making it easier, not harder. Again, there is, as was said, there is no nirvana. There's no single way to make everybody happy. I will say I am interested in the idea of, what if there was a San Francisco to Oyster Point service? Like, what would that actually mean? And then, at some point we'd like to expect to have service to Redwood City. What's the implication of that? Seamus mentioned Mission Bay and so forth. So there's changes in the offing here, and we don't want to be disruptive, but there are fiscal considerations, and we can't be running vessels that are only marginally attended by passengers. So we have to take all of that into consideration. So other comments from my colleagues? Pippin?
I just had a couple questions on the trial period service schedule. So it's a separate vessel that departs on the westbound route at 7:05 a.m. from Oakland than the 6:05 a.m., right?
That's right.
Two vessels. Okay, and so it's not like the 550 is going to South San Francisco and then coming back and is arriving at Main Street. That one doesn't actually arrive at Main Street until 7:35 on the return trip, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then and so the second vessel, it just departs Oakland, arrives at South San Francisco, and then it's done.
Then it's done on the South San Francisco route. Then it goes and does other productive service where we need it in the system.
Okay. And then the one that is going westbound at 4:35 p.m. from Main Street, Alameda, is it then going to Oakland?
I'm sorry, the 4:35 p.m. Main Street departure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming from Oakland. So this is basically the reverse. This is the 3:30 p.m. trip from South San Francisco. It goes to Oakland, and then Main Street drops folks off from Oyster Point, and then it's heading back to South San Francisco to do the 5:30 p.m. departure from South San Francisco. So while it's at those terminals, I believe we average one rider on that reverse trip.
Okay, so there's one vessel that departs at 4:35 p.m., but it does not go to Oakland.
It's already been to Oakland. So it's already stopped in Oakland. So it has it departs Oakland at 4:15. If you look at the next cell to the right, it
Right.
goes Oakland to Main Street, Alameda to South San Francisco.
Okay. Okay. I was thinking it was leaving Main Street and then going to Oakland. I'm like, how's it going back in time? Okay.
That would be a great trick if we could do it.
Yes, it would be. Okay. That clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Please go ahead, Monique.
Thank you. First of all, to the staff, thank you so much for the hard work that you're doing here. This is a challenging situation, and one that's probably going to be part of our DNA as we implement our service vision in the next, what are we looking at, 15 years, more or less? More. So I appreciate that, and hopefully becomes a roadmap for how to continue to do that. I also really want to thank all of the members of the South San Francisco community who are participating, and hopefully you can see how important it is to have your feedback and have your engagement and your ideas. So thank you for being part of that conversation and encourage you to continue to do so, but also to bring more so that we can make sure that we are optimizing the service. We have a lot to accomplish. This is a really important success piece for our overall system, but it needs to be successful, and for that it needs to be a viable public transit option and not a high-priced commute option for just a few people. And so I'm not implying that that's what it is today, but I'd really like to see the growth. The growth of our service is not keeping pace with the growth of South City, of Oyster Point. And I don't know why that is, but there's certainly a tremendous amount of growth that's been happening in Oyster Point, and we're not seeing a pro rata share of that coming to the ferry system. And I'm wondering why, and if that's possible to capture that. As I think Tom said, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So my appeal to those of you who have kindly showed up today is to help us to understand how we can do better, to appeal to more of those new entrants to the Oyster Point area. It is, in my view, already a pretty compacted area, particularly if you're stuck in that 101 corridor. And so this is why we exist, and we really could use your help in all veins and all ideas. So thank you for being part of the conversation.
Okay, thanks. If that's without any other comments, we'll close out on item number 9. Appreciate the work on this, and that's continuing. And then item number 10 is, are there any comments on from the public on items that are not on today's agenda?
We have one speaker, Josue Enriquez. Please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Josue Henriquez. Thank you for hearing me out today, and thank you for being here today. On November 6th, I sent an inquiry through the Ferry Buildings online forum, and I did not receive any information requested. Instead, the employees from the Ferry Building ignored my request and informed the person I was investigating about the inquiry. I am investigating the nonprofit organization Imperial Council of San Francisco for financial discrepancies. On June 26, 25, the San Francisco Ferry employees invited the elected official, Empress Africa America, to perform at the Pride event. I am investigating if Africa received payment for their performance. Africa is not allowed to financially gain from their title, and if they received and kept the payment, then it is fraud. I am also investigating if Nathan Daguiar and Mixkiki Crunch received payment for their performances. Your employees in the Ferry Building have ignored my request. If Africa didn't receive payment, then a simple no would have sufficed. Instead, the public can only assume they're trying to cover up fraudulent activity. So I am requesting the following information. How much money did Africa America, Nathan Daguiar, and Mixkiki Crunch receive for their performance? And then I also want to know the name of the employees who invited them to perform, name of the employee who provided them with payment, and the name of the employee who ignored my inquiry and warned Africa about my investigation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public on non-agendized items?
Nobody else has signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you. With that, I want to thank everyone for making it to 2026, and let's make this one a successful year. 4 million shouldn't be too tough. Seamus and company, right? Got this one, right? And onward from there. So thank you all. Appreciate the team here, and onward. Thank you.